Ladies, let's be real for a second. There are habits some women carry into relationships that instantly turn men off, not because men are complicated, but because these behaviors show a lack of self-awareness, respect, or confidence. If you want a healthy, lasting relationship, you can't ignore the truth. Today, I'm going to break down 7 habits men find absolutely disgusting. And here's the thing, this isn't about changing for a man. It's about leveling up for yourself so you attract and keep the right kind of partner. Respect starts with how you carry yourself, and this truth is non-negotiable. You teach people how to treat you by the energy you project, the boundaries you set, and the standards you uphold. The way you move through the world sends a message long before your words do. If you present yourself with confidence, poise, and integrity, people instinctively know where you stand. On the other hand, if you come across as insecure, unsure, or careless, you invite others to overlook you, dismiss you, or even walk all over you. Respect is not something you beg for or demand. It's something you cultivate from within and radiate outward. Think about how you enter a room. Do you look people in the eye? Do you stand tall? Do you speak with clarity instead of mumbling or guessing every word? People notice these small details. They notice if you carry yourself with intention or if you let yourself shrink into the background. Respect often begins with these micro moments. The way you sit, the tone of your voice, the way you respond when someone challenges you, it all communicates who you are. When you carry yourself like someone who respects themselves, others mirror that back to you. Now, carrying yourself with respect doesn't mean being arrogant or trying to dominate every space. It's about finding the balance between confidence and humility. Confidence without respect turns into arrogance, and humility without confidence becomes weakness. When you get the balance right, you become magnetic. People listen when you speak. They take you seriously because they sense you take yourself seriously. If you act like your presence doesn't matter, others will agree. If you treat your time, your body, and your mind like they are valuable, others will rise to meet that standard. Respect also shows up in how you handle challenges. Do you lose control when things don't go your way, or do you stay composed under pressure? The truth is, people watch you most closely when you're under stress. If you crack, yell, or collapse, you show them you're not in command of yourself. But if you hold your ground, if you breathe, pause, and respond instead of reacting, you demonstrate resilience and self-mastery. That earns respect. People trust those who can navigate difficulty with strength and grace. Another key aspect is how you treat others. Respect isn't only about how you present yourself, but also about the way you acknowledge the humanity in everyone around you. When you treat people with kindness, patience, and fairness, regardless of their status, you demonstrate that you have integrity. People may forget your words, but they will always remember how you made them feel. And if they feel dismissed, belittled, or overlooked, you chip away at the respect they might have had for you. On the flip side, when you show respect to others consistently, you naturally command it in return. Finally, respect is tied directly to boundaries. If you allow people to walk past your limits, you silently tell them it's acceptable. But when you stand firm, when you know when to say no, and when to step away, you communicate strength. Boundaries are a reflection of self-respect, and the people who value you will respect those boundaries. Those who don't were never meant to be in your life in the first place. When all of this comes together, the way you walk, talk, act under pressure, treat others, and protect your boundaries, you create an unshakable presence. It's not about faking confidence or pretending to be someone you're not. It's about living in alignment with your values and carrying yourself with dignity at all times. That is where true respect begins. Insecurity disguised as control destroys trust because when you operate from a place of fear, you end up trying to manage everything and everyone around you. Instead of allowing relationships to flow naturally, insecurity makes you tighten your grip. You want to know where they are, what they're doing, who they're talking to, and why they didn't respond to your message fast enough. You justify it by saying you care, by telling yourself you're just being attentive, but what it really reveals is a lack of trust in yourself and in the relationship. Control is not love, it's fear masquerading as protection, and that fear eats away at the foundation of any bond. When you try to control someone, you strip them of the very freedom that makes the relationship meaningful. Nobody wants to feel suffocated or micromanaged. True connection grows when both people feel free to be themselves without constantly looking over their shoulder. But insecurity makes you believe that if you loosen your grip even slightly, you'll lose what you have. Ironically, that very behavior pushes people away faster. Instead of making someone feel cherished, it makes them feel trapped, questioned, and untrusted, and eventually, they start pulling back because the weight of being under constant surveillance is too much. Trust is built on respect, openness, and the belief that the other person will choose you without being forced. When insecurity takes over, you rob them of that choice. You might think you're protecting the relationship, but what you're really doing is suffocating it. A healthy bond requires room to breathe, space to grow, and the understanding that love can't thrive in chains. Think of it like holding a handful of sand. The tighter you squeeze, the more it slips through your fingers. The looser your hand, the more it rests securely in your palm. Control is that tight grip, and love is what escapes because of it. It's also important to understand how insecurity disguised as control affects the other person emotionally. Being with someone who constantly questions your actions creates resentment. They begin to feel like they're always on trial, guilty until proven innocent. That wears down even the strongest connections. Over time, the relationship turns from something uplifting to something exhausting. When people associate being with you with stress or constant defense, they start seeking relief elsewhere. And once they connect freedom with being away from you, it's almost impossible to reverse that damage. On the flip side, security within yourself communicates confidence, and confidence builds attraction. When you are secure, you don't need to control because you know your worth. You trust that if someone wants to be with you, they will be without needing constant reminders or restrictions. That calm strength is far more powerful than any attempt to micromanage someone's actions. People are drawn to individuals who radiate that kind of energy because it makes them feel safe, respected, and valued. The truth is, control is never about the other person. It's about you. It's a reflection of your own fears, your doubts, your unhealed wounds. The only way to stop the cycle is to address those insecurities directly. When you do the inner work, when you learn to trust yourself and know your own value, you no longer feel the urge to control. You begin to understand that real power in relationships doesn't come from domination, but from trust and freedom. And when trust is present, love deepens. When freedom is respected, connection thrives. That's the difference between a bond built on insecurity and one built on strength. Authenticity is more powerful than perfection because people are drawn to what feels real, not what looks flawless on the surface. Perfection is an illusion that demands constant effort to maintain, and eventually the mask cracks. Authenticity, on the other hand, requires courage but creates trust instantly because people can sense when you're being genuine. When you show up as yourself, flaws, quirks, strengths, and all, you give others permission to do the same. That creates connection on a deeper level, something perfection will never achieve. The pressure to appear perfect often stems from fear of judgment. You think if you look polished enough, act agreeable enough, or present yourself as always in control, no one will criticize you. But what ends up happening is the opposite. People sense the performance. They feel the distance between who you are and who you're pretending to be, and that distance erodes trust. Nobody wants to connect with a facade. They want to know the human behind the appearance, and that human is far more relatable in their imperfections than in their attempts to hide them. Authenticity doesn't mean airing every detail of your life or being unfiltered at all times. It means aligning your words, actions, and values so they're consistent no matter where you are or who you're with. If you speak about honesty but lie to protect your image, people notice. If you demand respect but betray your own boundaries, people notice. Authenticity is about integrity, about closing the gap between what you project and who you really are. That consistency is what builds credibility and long-lasting respect. Perfection, in contrast, is fragile. It relies on outside validation, and the moment you don't receive it, you feel unworthy. You're constantly chasing approval, which keeps you stuck in a cycle of trying to please others instead of living for yourself. Authenticity frees you from that cycle because it's rooted in self-acceptance. When you know who you are and stand firmly in that truth, other people's opinions lose their power over you. Some will like you, some won't, but either way, you remain steady. That steadiness is strength, and people are drawn to it. Authenticity is also powerful because it highlights your unique value. In a world where many are trying to fit a mold or replicate what's trending, being yourself makes you unforgettable. Think about the people you admire most. It's rarely because they were perfect. It's because they were unapologetically themselves even when it was risky. They stood out because they refused to dilute their identity for approval. That's what made them magnetic. Your authenticity is your competitive edge, the thing no one else can duplicate. Another reason authenticity outweighs perfection is that it fosters trust in relationships. When you pretend to be perfect, others feel pressure to match that standard, and it creates distance. When you're real, people relax around you. They feel safe showing their own vulnerabilities, which deepens intimacy and respect. Authenticity creates a space where honesty thrives, and that's the foundation of any meaningful connection, whether in friendships, romantic relationships, or professional environments. Living authentically isn't always easy. It requires facing your flaws instead of covering them up, admitting mistakes instead of pretending they never happened, and standing by your values even when it costs you something. But the reward is freedom, the freedom of not having to perform, the freedom of being accepted for who you truly are, and the freedom of building relationships based on reality, not illusions. Authenticity is powerful because it's unshakable. Perfection crumbles under pressure, but authenticity stands strong because it doesn't need to pretend, it simply is. Communication without accountability is just noise because words lose their weight when they aren't backed by consistent action. Anyone can say the right thing, promise change, or apologize in the moment, but if those words aren't followed up with responsibility, they become meaningless. Real communication requires ownership of your choices, your behavior, and the impact you have on others. Without that, what you're doing is performing, not connecting, and people eventually stop listening because they no longer believe what you say. Accountability is what gives your words credibility. If you promise to show up, then show up. If you admit a mistake, then make a genuine effort to correct it. If you say you respect someone, then demonstrate it through your actions. When there's alignment between what you say and what you do, trust grows. When there's a gap between them, trust erodes. People don't remember the speeches you make nearly as much as they remember how you follow through. The danger of communication without accountability is that it creates false security. For a moment, words can soothe tension, calm anger, or give the appearance of progress. But when nothing changes, resentment builds. People feel manipulated, as if they've been pacified rather than heard. Over time, they stop taking your words seriously because they've learned that your communication is only surface level. It becomes background noise, something they tune out because it carries no real weight. Once you reach that point, rebuilding credibility is incredibly difficult. True accountability requires humility. It means admitting when you're wrong, acknowledging the hurt you caused, and being willing to make changes even if it's uncomfortable. Many people avoid this because it challenges their ego. They'd rather talk around the issue, justify their actions, or shift the blame than take full responsibility. But without accountability, no amount of communication can restore trust. The words ring hollow because deep down, everyone knows they aren't supported by real change. It's also important to understand that accountability isn't just about big mistakes. It's about consistency in the small things. If you say you'll call. If you say you'll meet a deadline, meet it. These seemingly minor acts build the foundation of reliability. When people know they can count on you to do what you say, even in small matters, they naturally trust you with bigger responsibilities. But when you repeatedly fail at the little things and try to cover it with excuses or nice words, it reveals a lack of discipline and respect for others' time and trust. Communication without accountability also damages relationships because it creates a cycle of disappointment. Each time you make a promise and break it, you're not only failing the other person, you're training them not to trust you. Even if your intentions are good, intentions don't matter if the actions don't follow. What matters is the lived experience of the people around you. If they experience inconsistency, unreliability, or dishonesty, no amount of verbal reassurance will fix that. Trust is built through patterns, not speeches. At its core, accountability is about integrity. It's about having the courage to face yourself honestly and admit where you fell short, then committing to doing better. When you practice accountability, your communication becomes powerful because people know your words are rooted in truth. They know that when you say something, it carries weight. That kind of credibility is rare, and it's what separates leaders from pretenders, partners from manipulators, and people of character from people of convenience. Without accountability, your voice may be loud, but it won't be heard. With accountability, even a few words carry lasting impact because people know they can trust them. Self-respect sets the standard for how others treat you because the way you value yourself teaches people what they can and cannot get away with. If you constantly put yourself last, accept disrespect, or ignore your own needs, you send a silent message that your boundaries don't matter. People will only rise to the level you demand of them, and if you don't demand much, you won't receive much. Self-respect is the foundation of every healthy relationship, every career move, and every personal decision, because it defines the baseline for what you're willing to tolerate and what you're not. When you respect yourself, you naturally create boundaries. Boundaries aren't walls to shut people out. They're guidelines that protect your peace and ensure mutual respect. They tell others where your limits are and what behaviors are unacceptable. Without them, people assume they can speak to you however they want, take advantage of your kindness, or disregard your time. But when you stand firm and enforce boundaries, you communicate strength. You're not asking others to treat you better. You're showing them through your actions what you will and won't allow. Self-respect also influences the way you carry yourself in everyday life. It shows up in your posture, your tone, your choices, and even the way you take care of your body. People notice whether you prioritize your health, whether you value your time, and whether you speak with conviction. When you neglect yourself, you project neglect. When you honor yourself, you project dignity. And dignity commands respect. Others pick up on this energy quickly, and they adjust their behavior based on how seriously you take yourself. Another truth about self-respect is that it determines the quality of the relationships you attract. If you lack self-respect, you tend to settle for less, clinging to people who don't deserve you because you don't believe you deserve better. That's how toxic dynamics form, cycles of disrespect, manipulation, and imbalance. But when you have self-respect, you filter out people who are incapable of meeting your standards. You don't chase, you don't beg, and you don't compromise your values for temporary attention. Instead, you attract those who value and respect you because you've already set the tone through the way you live. Self-respect also plays a powerful role in how you handle setbacks. Life will test you with failure, rejection, and disappointment. But if you respect yourself, you don't let those moments define your worth. You may bend, but you don't break. You take the lesson, adjust, and keep moving. People admire and respect those who can maintain their dignity under pressure. That resilience shows strength of character, and it silently communicates to the world that you're not someone who can be diminished by circumstances. It's important to recognize that self-respect is not arrogance or self-importance. It's not about thinking you're better than others. It's about recognizing your own value and refusing to compromise it. Arrogance pushes people away because it elevates self at the expense of others. Self-respect draws people closer because it creates balance. It honors your worth while still respecting theirs. When both people in a relationship operate from self-respect, the connection flourishes because it's built on mutual appreciation rather than dependency or exploitation. At the end of the day, the standard you set for yourself becomes the standard others follow. If you carry yourself with confidence, enforce your boundaries, and act with dignity, people will treat you with respect because they know there's no other option. But if you allow disrespect, excuses, and neglect, that's exactly what you'll continue to receive. Self-respect is not optional. It's the foundation upon which every interaction in your life is built. The higher your standard for yourself, the higher the standard others will meet when they're with you.